Picture this. You're cruising down a sun-drenched avenue in the Middle East. You're behind the wheel of this bright yellow, ridiculously expensive luxury sports car.
Oh yeah, living the absolute dream, right.
Right, exactly. And you pull up to this super trendy, hyper-expensive steakhouse. You know the type where some flashy chef is, like, wearing sunglasses indoors and charges you $500 for a steak covered in literal edible gold leaf.
Which, by the way, doesn't even taste like anything.
Right, it's just metal. But you snap a picture, you post it online, and to the world, I mean, you have officially made it.
You're at the top of the mountain.
Exactly. But what if I told you the person taking that photo is statistically likely to be drowning in high-interest credit card debt? Like, they are one unexpected $400 emergency away from total financial ruin?
It is a really startling image, but it perfectly captures the core illusion of modern wealth.
Yeah.
We are constantly sold the outward performance of money, but we rarely, if ever, discuss the internal psychological machinery required to actually keep it.
Which brings us to a phrase you've probably heard tossed around. Money talks, wealth whispers. Today, we are taking that concept and just tearing it down to the studs.
It's going to be a fun one.
We are diving deep into the psychology of abundance, the hidden logic of wealth creation, and really the mental traps that keep incredibly smart people completely broke.
Yeah, and we're pulling insights from a fantastic source by a self-made multimillionaire who built an empire from absolute zero.
Right, and he didn't do it by, picking the right stocks, but by mastering his own mind.
But before we get into the actual blueprint he lays out, we need to establish our absolute baseline for this deep dive.
Let's do it. For everyone listening right now, everything we are discussing today is strictly for educational and entertainment purposes. We are exploring the mindset and the behavioral psychology behind wealth creation.
Yeah, nothing shared in this conversation is financial or investment advice.
Exactly. Not financial advice.
That is crucial to keep in mind, because our mission today is really to decode behavior. The author of our source, he started with no money and no qualifications.
That thing.
Right. And his framework focuses heavily on identifying and dodging very specific, very subtle psychological pitfalls that most people don't even realize they're stepping into.
And the very first trap he outlines completely upends what most of us are taught about career building. Like, he argues that if your ultimate goal is long-term wealth, prioritizing money early on is actually a fatal error.
I know, it feels completely backwards.
Yeah.
You want to be rich, so you should chase the highest paycheck.
That, as society tells us.
Exactly. But he breaks this down by contrasting two different early career paths. Let's call them Path A and Path B.
Okay, lay them out.
So in Path A, you take a comfortable, boring, but relatively well-paying job right out of the gate. You have immediate cash flow. Your friends think you're successful.
You can buy the nice clothes, go to the nice dinners.
Right. But very quickly, your earning potential hits a concrete ceiling. You are simply trading hours for a slightly above average paycheck, and you aren't actually becoming more valuable to the marketplace.
It's like living on a sugar rush. You get this massive immediate spike of validation and cash, but there is no underlying nutritional substance.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
And eventually you crash.
Huh.
So what does Path B look like then?
Path B is taking a highly challenging, often significantly lower paying role. In the short term, I mean, you might really struggle.
Yeah.
People might look at your life and think you are falling behind. But you are trading that immediate cash for two incredibly powerful long-term assets.
Which are?
High-level skills and equity. The source uses his own life as an example here. He had a stack of decent job offers but chose to work as a carpenter's apprentice for terrible pay.
Wow.
Yeah, because he knew he was learning a tangible, high-value skill.
Wait, I need to jump in here. The carpenter's apprentice story is great, but isn't there a massive amount of privilege baked into taking a lower-paying job?
Oh, absolutely.
Because if I'm listening to this right now and I have rent, I have groceries and student loans, how on earth do I balance basic survival with taking a pay cut just to learn a new skill?
That is the defining tension for most people, and it's a completely valid pushback. But the framework isn't suggesting you starve in the streets for the sake of learning.
Right.
It's advocating for a fundamental shift in how you view your time and what equity actually means.
Mm-hmm.
Equity isn't just owning stock in a company.
Okay, what is it then?
Equity means owning a piece of the outcome. It means your earning potential is decoupled from your hourly labor.
So you aren't just punching a clock.
Exactly. If you absolutely have to take Path A just to pay your rent, The wealthy mindset dictates that you use your off hours to walk path B.
Ah, I see. So you treat your day job as a mechanism to fund your actual education.
Precisely. You view your situation through the lens of an investor, not an employee. You are investing your time, whether on the job or after hours, to build a modern Swiss Army knife of skills.
Like what kind of skills?
Today, that looks like high-income digital skills,
Yeah.
copywriting, coding, video editing. You are building an internal asset that no one, not a bad boss, not a crashing economy, can ever take away from you.
It's like planting an orchard instead of chasing a sugar rush.
I love that.
An orchard demands, years of grueling work in the dirt with absolutely zero fruit to show for it. But once those trees mature, they feed you for the rest of your life.
And this leads to a fascinating psychological pivot.
Yeah.
Let's say you do it. You put in the hours, you build the high-end skills, you plant the orchard, and the money actually starts flowing in.
You've made it.
You have successfully navigated the first trap, yes.
Which means you are now standing directly on the trap door of the second one, surviving your own success.
Yes, the illusion of the luxury lifestyle. This is honestly where most self-made money goes to die.
This brings us right back to that guy in the yellow sports car from the beginning of the deep dive, the flex culture. Why is it that the second people get a little bit of money, the immediate biological urge is to buy something flashy to prove it?
Because human beings are wired for social hierarchy. We crave visible status markers. But what the source points out is that the vast majority of flex culture is entirely smoke and mirrors.
Right.
When you look at the actual data, it is terrifying. He cites that 37% of Americans cannot afford an unexpected $400 expense.
Wait, really? 37%?
Yeah. And 60% of households couldn't afford to buy a new car if they needed one. Yet, you look at our social feeds, and they are flooded with luxury.
It's all fake.
It is almost entirely funded by crushing consumer debt. People are financing vacations over 5 years just to impress strangers they don't even like.
It is exactly like a theatrical stage set. Like if you sit in the audience, you see a grand, opulent billionaire's mansion.
Yeah.
But if you walk onto the stage and look behind the curtain, it's just cheap cardboard propped up by duct tape and high-interest loans.
Exactly. One stiff breeze, one unexpected medical bill, and the entire facade collapses.
That is why true wealth consciousness requires you to act against your own ego. Instead of taking that early money and buying depreciating liabilities, things that lose value the second you buy them, like luxury cars or designer clothes you buy appreciating assets.
Yes, you buy real estate, index funds, businesses.
But those things are invisible. I can't wear an index fund to a dinner party.
And that is exactly the psychological mechanism you have to conquer. True wealth doesn't care about the dinner party.
Right.
True wealth isn't buying validation. It is buying freedom. It's buying back your own time.
That is a massive paradigm shift. By the way, to everyone listening right now, if you are finding value in this breakdown, if these mental models are challenging how you look at your own resources, take a second to hit subscribe and turn on notifications.
Yeah, please do.
We are dropping deep dives like this all the time, and you won't want to miss what's coming next.
It really is a shift in your internal operating system. But let's follow the timeline. You build the skills, you ignore the flex culture, you quietly buy assets, you are doing everything right.
Okay, sounds good so far.
But eventually, you are going to hit a wall. You will max out what you can achieve in a 24-hour day.
The solo player ceiling.
The self-made myth. This is the third major trap.
I am so glad we were talking about this because our culture violently obsesses over the lone genius trope.
Oh, totally.
The single, misunderstood visionary who locks themselves in a garage, writes a bunch of code, and emerges as a billionaire to change the world single-handedly.
It makes for a great movie script, but historically it is a complete fabrication. Massive abundance is never generated in a vacuum.
Right.
The source brings up a legendary group of tech founders from the early 2000s. They built an online payment platform together and eventually sold it for $1.5 billion.
An unfathomable amount of money. I mean, they could have just bought private islands and disappeared forever.
But they didn't. They understood the power of the collective. They took that money, spread out across the tech industry, and acted like a massive hive mind. They started an aerospace company, a massive video sharing platform, and the biggest professional networking site on the internet. And they did it by constantly funding each other, advising each other, and pooling their respective geniuses.
Okay, but you listening to this right now, you probably aren't trying to build the next global aerospace conglomerate. So how does the hive mind concept apply to a normal person trying to build financial security?
Well, You build your own microhive mind. The source gives a brilliant, highly practical example. Think about traditional, older business owners in your town.
Like plumbers and electricians.
Exactly. The folks running successful plumbing companies, auto shops, real estate agencies, they have massive physical assets and business acumen.
Right.
But many of them are completely lost when it comes to the digital world. They're still using paper invoices. They don't know how to optimize a website or run a modern management platform.
They have the engine, but they don't have the digital Swiss Army knife.
Precisely. If you are the person who walked Path B and built those digital skills, you don't need to start a business from scratch. You partner with them.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
You integrate your modern skills with their traditional assets. You build a symbiotic relationship where everyone wins.
Which raises a huge question for me. If teamwork and collaboration are undeniably the bedrock of wealth creation, why do we desperately cling to this self-made billionaire narrative?
It's a good question.
It's like watching a talented athlete refuse to pass the ball, trying to play quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive lineman on every single play. It's totally exhausting and physically impossible.
We cling to it because it flatters the human ego. Admitting you need a team means admitting you have weaknesses.
Right.
It requires supreme humility to say, I am not good enough to do this alone. And that leads directly to the fourth psychological trap: cognitive overload and the arrogance of the ego.
Because the moment you start collaborating with a team or partnering with traditional business owners, you are suddenly bombarded with opinions.
An absolute avalanche of them. The source visualizes this trap as standing in the center of a room while hundreds of people pull you in different directions.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. Your parents want you to take a safe corporate job. Social media tells you to start a dropshipping business. Your friends want you to travel. When you have too many inputs, your brain literally shorts out. You experience decision paralysis.
It's like trying to navigate a complex city in a car filled with 5 aggressive backseat drivers.
Yes.
One is screaming at you to take the highway, another is yelling about a shortcut, someone else is pointing out a dog on the sidewalk. You aren't going to reach your destination. You're going to crash the car purely from sensory overload.
Exactly.
You have to literally mute the passengers and only listen to the GPS.
That is the exact mechanism. You have to work backward from your ultimate destination. Figure out the specific lifestyle or financial goal you want, and then ruthlessly cut out any noise that doesn't serve that specific route.
Just ignore it completely.
Yes. You only take inputs from people who have successfully navigated that specific terrain.
But hold on, isn't there a massive danger there?
How so?
If I ruthlessly cut out everyone's opinion, don't I risk just building an arrogant echo chamber? Like, how do I know the difference between a highly focused filtering and just being a narcissist who won't listen to reason?
That is the defining line, and it requires understanding the iceberg principle. Arrogance is looking at the tip of the iceberg, the tiny fraction of a subject you currently understand, and assuming that's all there is.
Okay.
True focus, the kind that builds wealth, acknowledges the massive, terrifying chunk of ice beneath the water. You filter out the noise of the masses, but you maintain extreme beginner-level humility when listening to actual experts.
I see.
If you don't possess the humility to be a student, you will never uncover the depth required to master anything.
And you're going to need that humility because no matter how good your skills are and no matter how strong your hive mind is, you are going to fail. You'll make a bad investment, a partnership will sour, or the market will turn. And how you react in that exact second determines whether you stay wealthy or lose it all.
Which brings us to the fifth trap, and it is arguably the most insidious: the blame game.
Yeah.
The source uses a profound Chinese proverb here. The man who blames others has a long journey ahead, the man who blames himself is halfway there, and the man who blames no one has already arrived.
I love the imagery he uses to break this down. He asks the reader to imagine 2 everyday objects, a magnifying glass and a mirror.
Right.
When a crisis hits, which one do you pick up?
If you pick up the magnifying glass, you are actively choosing distortion. You hold it over the people around you, the government, the algorithm, your boss.
Everything but you.
Exactly. You make your faults look artificially massive, which conveniently makes your own responsibility look tiny.
It's psychological Novocaine.
Oh, I like that. How do you mean?
Well, when you have a rotting tooth, Novocaine feels amazing in the short term. It completely numbs the pain. Blaming your boss or the economy is Novocaine for your ego.
That's so true.
It protects you from the immediate sting of failure. But while you are sitting there feeling numb and validated, the tooth is still rotting.
That is incredibly accurate. Blame is a defense mechanism that forces you to surrender your own agency. If your lack of wealth is entirely the system's fault, then the system has to be the thing that fixes it.
Right.
And spoiler alert for the listener, no one is coming to save you, which is why you have to put down the magnifying glass and pick up the mirror.
You have to look yourself in the eye and take total, radical accountability. The mirror forces you to focus strictly on your own thoughts, your own reactions, and your own controllable outputs.
It is painful to look in the mirror and admit you messed up, but it is the only psychological state where you retain the power to actually change your circumstances.
But what happens when you look in that mirror, you take accountability and you realize, well, you're just bored. You aren't failing, but you aren't growing either. You're just stuck in a rut.
You have just identified the final barrier to true abundance, the self-imposed prison of the comfort zone.
A comfort zone.
The source describes the comfort zone as a perfect circle with absolutely no gaps. Inside the circle, it is warm, safe, and entirely predictable. But absolutely nothing of value grows there.
It's a tragedy of unfulfilled potential. And the stats on this are honestly heartbreaking.
They really are.
Studies show that over half of the population will never actively push beyond their established comfort zone, and 45% of people live with a lingering daily fear that they will reach the end of their lives having regretted playing it too safe.
Almost half the population is walking around burdened by preemptive regret. But breaking out of that circle requires introducing intentional tension into your life.
It's the rubber band effect. A rubber band sitting loosely on a desk is totally useless and has no potential energy.
Right.
For a rubber band to fulfill its purpose, to actually hold things together or launch forward, it has to be stretched. It has to experience tension. But how does someone listening actually do that?
What do you mean?
How do you distinguish between stretching the rubber band and just snapping it? What is the difference between a necessary, calculated risk to expand your comfort zone and just doing something recklessly stupid?
That is the difference between stair-stepping and blind leaping. The source illustrates this beautifully through the author's own trajectory. He didn't just quit a stable job and bet his life savings on a random crypto coin.
That would be snapping the band.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He stretched the rubber band incrementally. He started by taking the uncomfortable apprenticeship. Once he mastered that, he expanded the zone again by launching low-risk side hustles to learn business mechanics.
So he proved the concept before he went all in.
Exactly. Only after he had built the skills and the discipline did he finally take on the tension of a bank loan to launch a full-scale business.
Wow.
He even pushed himself to travel internationally, dealing with intense language barriers and cultural differences just to find the perfect manufacturer. He didn't wait for the space outside his comfort zone to invite him in. He actively claimed it.
And what I found so inspiring is that the stretching never stops. Even after he became a multimillionaire, when his bank accounts were overflowing but his daily routine felt stagnant, he made himself a beginner all over again.
Yeah, he sat down and learned how to light, shoot, and edit videos so he could share his knowledge online.
He continually chose tension over stagnation.
Because the moment you stop expanding the boundaries of your comfort zone, your wealth consciousness begins to atrophy.
Money talks, wealth whispers. You know, at the start of this deep dive, that phrase just felt like a clever observation about buying expensive cars.
Right.
But walking through this framework, it means so much more. Real wealth isn't an outward performance. It is a quiet, highly disciplined internal operating system.
It's the quiet confidence of knowing you have built a toolkit of undeniable skills. It's the quiet humility of surrounding yourself with a hive mind smarter than you are. And it is the quiet strength of looking in the mirror and taking absolute ownership of your life.
If this breakdown shifted how you view your own journey, or if it made you realize it's time to put down the magnifying glass and pick up the mirror, please make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications.
Yes, definitely do that.
We are constantly deconstructing these mental models, and we want you here for the next one.
And as we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought experiment to really test your own internal operating system. We've spent this entire time dissecting what it takes to build abundance. But I want you to think about what it takes to survive it.
Oh, that is a great pivot.
Ask yourself this. If you woke up tomorrow morning and by some absolute miracle, you were handed your ultimate pie-in-the-sky financial goal, the exact dollar amount you have been dreaming of, do you currently possess the psychology to handle it?
That's deep.
Do you have the high-level skills, the trusted team, and the supreme humility required to actually keep it? Or, without that internal foundation, would all that money just slip right through your fingers.
That is the million-dollar question. The orchard has to be ready to catch the fruit. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive. Stretch that rubber band this week, and we will catch you next time.